Hey y'all. So today it's Iyslander versus Dory. I received a request for this. Basically, there's some people saying that this matchup is actually pretty tricky, and I have to say I do agree. I think this was like the fifth or sixth game I played into Dory, and yeah, it is tougher than I thought it would be, theoretically speaking, because of the number of D reacts that we run. So yeah, this is it. We won the die roll here, and I chose to go first. Against Dory, I do try to do the Frostex game plan, especially since, just having D-reacts in a deck is something you want against Dory anyway, and then, like, bringing in all the D-reacts just makes the Frostex game plan very conducive. Also, Dory has, like, plenty of blues and, yeah, but plenty of blues, like, to, like, efficiently deal with our tempo game plan. So yeah, we went first, hoping to set up Insidious Chill, and didn't find one, and I thought I'd be able to sneak in some free arcane damage with the freezing point, but my opponent had OSS Respite, and so they managed to block it out completely. Respite plus AB2. They blocked that, and they blocked our Waning Moon. We managed to pitch a yellow Sigil of Permafrost to the Waning Moon, which means we know I'm going to see one relatively, like basically the first thing in the second cycle, so that's perfect, because once I get the 3 Frost X's up, I want to see these Sigils again, like ASAP. So, yep, that was nice. Opponent starts with a Warrior's Valor. We respond with Winter's Bite, hoping to stop them a little, but my opponent has 2 blues. And then the Ironsong Determination and this Dawnblade's coming in for 7 with Dominate. But we have another Sigil, so we go ahead and fuse it. And Waning Moon our opponent for 3, which stops the second Dawnblade swing. So we prevent the counter, so that's really nice. And our opponent takes 1. Alright, on our turn, pretty standard stuff since we had to do the Sigil play on the previous turn. We are left only 2 cards remaining, which means it's Carnet Peak and Arsenal. Hypothermia, very strong card against Dory. So, very glad to be able to Arsenal that idea, especially when our opponent's only on a 3-card hand. Alright, so our opponent starts with another Warrior's Valor. And we have an, interesting decision to make here. This OSS Respite, of course, drawing it when we don't have tuning up can be pretty awkward. But we do have Hypothermia to stop the Warrior's Valor, to stop the go again. However, we also have Blizzard. And so Hypothermia is one of those cards where you always want to play it in the resolution step. So, it's after you've gone past reactions, you've taken the damage, you stop the go again in a resolution step, and you know you're definitely going to stop it because it's Hypothermia. Blizzard, however, sometimes you want to play it before the resolution step, just so you know whether your opponent can pay for it or not. So I do opt to start with a Blizzard here, choosing to keep the Hypothermia. Like, Hypothermia, Blizzard, both honestly kind of power cards against Dory, I found. Okay, that was me, I think, trying to take it back because I wasn't entirely sure, but I do end up Blizzarding it. So Hypothermia and Blizzard, kind of power cards to, like, stop the Dory from even threatening a Dawnblade counter. And so I do value, like, keeping the Hypothermia. And with a hand like this, I don't mind just throwing this hand away on defense. But I mean, this hand has basically no offensive power, so I can throw this hand away on defense, keep the Hypothermia, for more defenses later when I need to set up the Frost X and the Insidious Chill. So I see that my opponent can pay for it, which means now I want to block out this Dawnblade to stop the Dory, to not let my opponent attack twice, because they do need it to hit. For it to, well, I guess because of Warrior's Valor, they needed to hit to even gain go again. So yeah. So we go and throw the whole hand there. Would have been nice if we had Tunic up, because then we could have still Carnet peaked on this turn, but that's okay. The Blizzard still took our opponent off a 5-card hand anyway, so that's good, and we got to maintain Hypothermia. We got to keep it. And since we drew into Insidious Chill immediately, I'm glad I made that decision, because now I know I can just stop my opponent's turn. I can stop my opponent getting a counter with just Hypothermia in my arsenal, and that buys me the space to play out Insidious Chill. So there's Dawnblade's coming in, and there's nothing before it. And like typically, I think it used to be back in the day that you see like a Dawnblade, nothing before it, and you just don't block to stop the Glint the Quicksilver draw a card, the reprise effect. But now that they have Blade Flash and Run Through, you kind of can't really just afford to just keep eating the first 3 damage swing. And so I believe I do like to block with this freezing point. Because it's likely that the go against source is like a run through or a blade flash, in which case I'd be sad I didn't block the 3 damage. Okay, so we block 3, and then our opponent does a pump. but they still don't have a source of go again yet. And that's the thing about the blocking 3 as well, right? Your opponent needs to pump it and get a source of go again, for it to for them to be attacked with it again. So cool. So we go to damage here. Oh yeah, so opponent has no further reactions. They go to damage and then they pop refraction bolters, and that is perfect. So then now I just respond to that with a hypothermia, and yeah, that ends our opponent's turn. So we got their bolters basically, because of the play we made the previous turn where we didn't waste a hypothermia. Previous turn we opted to blizzard. What the blizzard did was just keep our opponent off a 5-card hand, and let us keep hypothermia. And in this case, our opponent kind of got blown out by us having hypothermia in arsenal. And like I said earlier, keeping the hypothermia bought us the time to now just play this Insidious Chill. And these are sort of plays you kind of need to make. Like, you need to recognize which turns you can afford to, like, sort of not use your entire defensive power, and which turns you really want to. So, for example, if my hand did not have an Insidious Chill, I may not have played out the hypothermia, because the hypothermia is much better on a hand where I have a Frost X or Insidious Chill. Okay, and then opponent comes in, Nourishing Emptiness. We don't have a D-React in Arsenal. The only way we block this then is if we give Ironhide plus either Tunic or Coronet Peak, which is obviously not something I'm going to do this early in the game. So yeah, so here the best play is just to block 3 to conserve some life, and then come an opponent with a fused Ice Vein, which because of Insidious Chill will take at least 2 cards from them. And then, you know, they will still have a 4-card hand remaining because Nourishing brings them up to 6 cards total. But still, at least we get to slow it down a little. And of course, we go ahead and play out Energy Potion. So in terms of the setup we want to do, we're good. I only run 1 E-Pot in this list. I don't think you need more than that. Also, it can get really clunky if you draw too many no blocks. So I only run 1 E-Pot, and I think that's sufficient. And then, yeah, in terms of the other side we want to do, the 1 Insidious Chill is fine, and we want to find 2 to 3 Frost X's. Although it depends, if we keep using Insidious Chill charges like this on like fused Ice Veins just to like not die, then we might need to set up a second one. But let's hope it doesn't get to that. Alright, opponent discards a red to the Insidious Chill trigger, and then pitches a blue to block 1 and take 4. On the Ice Veins, uses the 2 float to pay for the Ice Veins effect. They accidentally put a glint in their graveyard at first, so move it back to their pitch zone. And we draw another red Ice Vein. It's quite nice. But, you know, we are kind of wanting to see the Frost X's. Although, I mean, Ice Veins do also, like, whittle our opponent down so that we need fewer Frost X's for the final combo. So that's also nice. But they do also use up Insidious Chill charges, and those are also a very valuable resource. My opponent starts with a Warrior's Valor, and my opponent already knew I had an Amulet of Ice in Arsenal because I fused the Ice Vein with it the previous turn. So I just go ahead and play it. There's no point trying to, you know, bluff how much taxes I have, since they already know what's in my arsenal. Then to play another Iron Song. Iron Song, honestly, very strong card for the Dory opponent in this matchup. So this first dawnblade is coming in for 7, and they have the Tunic up to swing with the dawnblade again. And I make the call here that I kind of need to take the first one and just hope that I can block the second one with my defense reaction, and just hope they don't have Iron Song response in their arsenal. So now this Dominate is coming in for 4 Dominate. If I wanted, yeah, I mean, if I wanted to be really, really careful, I could use my Tunic counter to also Ironhide Gauntlet and block this for 6. Oh wait, that's pointless because Iron Song buffs it by 3. It would go over anyway. So yeah, there was nothing we could do there unless we wanted to also give up Tunic. So I decided not to play around it and just hope our opponent doesn't have it, and they didn't have it, so that's very good for us. So we stop the second hit, don't let them get the counter, and on our turn we do like a massive tempo swinging play with a fused Ice Vein. Also fusing with a Cold Snap, knowing that I'll have a Cold Snap arsenal also feels just really strong. So same thing, opponent discards a red and pitches a blue to block 1 and then pay 2. So Ice Eternal is one of those cards which I want to see later on in the game. Like, I need to have at least 2 Frost X's before I'm happy to play Ice Eternal. So that's something I'm looking to either sink away or just pitch away. Oh, there we go. Yeah, I pitch it away to the Cold Snap. Right, note that we are playing that Cold Snap with a Dawnblade activation on the stack. So, before it's even considered attacking, before it's any attack reactions can happen, anything. So we do that, opponent doesn't pay, and then now I'm trying to decide how much I want to block this Dawnblade. My opponent does have the one float, but if they have a zero cost attack reaction like Iron Song Response, they would need to pay one to pay through the Frostbite. Of course, my opponent could just be holding the card and actually doesn't have any good thing to do. So that's why I use the 2 first to Waning Moon them to see whether they're going to pay for it. Because if they pay to block 1 damage, then I don't need to be scared of any attack reaction. But since they didn't block the Waning Moon at all, I'm suspecting they have an Iron Song Response in hand. So that was the point of Waning Mooning, using the Waning Moon before deciding what my blocks are. So given that, I decide, yeah, I'm expecting Iron Song Response, and here we go. So I just block 3 first, and then hold the sink for the Iron Song Response, which I suspected was there. So we still got an Ice Tunnel down in our pitch stack, and we conserve damage that turn. Because if all we had done was just sink that, and upon an Iron Song's response, they deal 2 damage over, and we're left with 3 cards in hand. Hypothermia, Incarceration, and Ice Tunnel, which just isn't really a good hand. Like, ideally you want to use 2 of those cards in Arsenal the third, but there's no, like, good 2-card sequence. And no, like, very efficient one, so I decided to just block with Ice Tunnel. Great, and our opponent pitches a Glistening, which is nice. We're very happy to see that. One of the power cards. And there we go. We finally see our first Frost tags. It's definitely been a while. They've been hiding from us. But, we did see a lot of our defensive power. Like, I think fair number of defense reactions and I think 1 or 2 Oasis Respites. So we had a good life total still to, set up these Frost Hexes. Okay, again, this is the same situation as earlier. Opponent is swinging a Dawnblade with nothing before it. And again, I do want to block a little of it. Like, I know it turns on their reprise and stuff, but like I said, it's likely that the go again source is not glint, so yeah. Right, so we block 3 and we leave it to our opponent to be able to pump it and give it go again. So they do pump it. It's going 3 over. And I'm basically waiting for the other attack reaction that gives it go again. Okay, and then they go ahead and play Singing Steel Blade. So yeah, honestly, okay, so when I we looked at it like this, and it was like we're like it's likely that the go against source is not Glint the Quicksilver. But the attack reactions were both like reprise stuff, Iron Song and Singing Steel Blade, so that's pretty unfortunate that we turned down the reprises. If we just didn't block, we would have just taken 3 and it would have been fine. Well, I guess we don't know what the Arsenal is, so maybe not, but yeah, this obviously feels bad, but we have an Hypothermia in Arsenal, so it's still like we have our way to get out of this. So opponent banishes the Glint and plays it, and with a draw trigger on the stack, I play out this Hypothermia. So that's before they get any resources, because I do plan to Waning Moon them as well. Yeah, so now I can Waning Moon them before they get to draw and, use their resources. So they have to take this 3, and they can draw, but this Dawnblade doesn't have go again, so, it doesn't matter. And they have a Frostbite, so I guess the worst thing that can happen is that they pitch the card they draw to play another attack reaction from Arsenal, which bumps the Dawnblade up a little more. That's the worst thing that can happen. But, we know this Dawnblade's not going to come in again. Okay, and then opponent plays Twinning from Arsenal. Ah, yes, actually, I remember this. I remember asking my opponent why they did this. Because they don't have go again. So, and they said because they didn't want... Well, firstly, they weren't happy with the Twinning in the Arsenal. And they were not... and they didn't want to keep a red in their hand. Like, they are trying to maximize the number of blues they draw. So that was a reasoning behind it. I'm not entirely sure if I agree with that, but that was a choice that they made. So on our turn, pretty standard. We just go ahead and activate Carnet Peak. Dory's 3-card hands, not as scary, obviously, as her 4 or 5 card hands. So we are feeling good about arsenaling this Frost Hex and trying to get it out. And then we go ahead and draw 2 more Frost Hexes. So all our Frost Hexes were, you know, down, clumped up in the middle of the deck. Oh, in the lower half of the deck. So that's not great. But we did at least draw a defense reaction with this. So that part at least feels nice. And yeah, this dawnblade's coming in for nothing. And I decide my best play is to just not block and see if they do give it go again. Right, they don't. They first do an Alpha Blood. We go ahead and sink this, and we see if we're good to damage. I would like to bait, if my opponent does have a go again attack reaction, I like to bait it out before playing the Frost Hex, because if they have like a run through which costs 1, they would use 1 to play the run through, and I give them a Frostbite, and then they can't actually swing the sword again. So that's what I was waiting for, but they just let it go to damage and they pass priority. So then I go ahead and play out the Frost Hex. And now we have 2 Frost Hexes in hand, but because of the E-Pot that we played earlier, I can actually just use my Tunic and my E-Pot to play one of them, and then go ahead and arsenal the third, and this way I get 3 Frost Hexes. It is debatable whether that's the correct play, because usually 2 Frost Hexes is enough. But I did feel like, since I did feel like I was in a good enough spot to try and get all 3 of them out. Right, so we say no blocks to the dawnblade. And then we go ahead and play this Frost Hex after they Blade Flash it. So at least, you know, I'll take the Tunic counter or another card if they want to swing the Dawnblade again. Right, so we go damage here. And then they pitch. And yeah, so this is the cost we paid to play all 3 Frost Hexes, is basically this. We're a little vulnerable here, you know, like I plan to block 6 on the second Dawnblade and hope that all they have is a +3. But it could very well be that, you know, we get blown out here. Like if it's an overpower or 2 +3s, then, you know, they get over us, they deal damage, and they get a counter. That would have been really bad, but turns out they just had 1 +3. I think, yeah, it's just a stroke. Yep, and then they're resolving the stroke. Again, this is my opponent saying that they just want to prioritize having as many blues in their hand as possible, so they play out the stroke to just get a red out of their hand, even though it didn't like push any damage. Which is an interesting strategy. I mean, I do think it serves them well, because most of these hands they've had 2 blues, and that's actually been pretty awkward. That's actually been pretty annoying for me, because I feel like I'm not able to slow them down enough. Alright, but now that we have 3 Frost Hexes, we are really looking to try and do the Freezing Point combo, which is you do a Sigil of Permafrost fused, and then you Striders out your Freezing Point, and fuse that as well, so it comes in for 8, and threatens that many Frostbites on hit. So I'm just taking a look at my graveyard real quick. The Freezing Point I'm holding is my last Freezing Point. But I also know that I feel like I've only seen 2 of my Sigils this game. There was one which we pitched really early on, and then there was one that we played, but there's 2 more left in the deck. And we are getting pretty close to the second cycle of a deck, so I expect I'm going to see it soon. And so what I'm thinking about right now is trying to figure out how I can play this turn cycle efficiently and get this Freezing Point in my arsenal. Because when you want to do the Freezing Point Sigil of Permafrost, you really want one of those 2 pieces in your arsenal when you do it, so that you can actually fuse both of them. Because, you know, the Sigil plus Striders plus Freezing Point costs you 5 resources. That's 2 cards out of your hand. And if the other 2 cards in your hand are the Sigil and Freezing Point itself, you actually don't have a card in your hand to fuse. So you need one of them to be in an arsenal, unless you like have an E-Pot out. So this is a pretty tough decision, because while I plan to put the Freezing Point in my arsenal, that combo line where you Sigil and Freezing Point, you do need to survive that turn. So I do need to be at a healthy enough life total when I go for that combo. So that's what making this that is what's making this blocking decision pretty tough. So I go and block 3 at first, and which blocks out a Dawnblade completely, and if they try and pump it, I still have a D-react. But then they go ahead and play a route, which I guess ends up being like the same as if I didn't block at all, because the +3 will happen anyway. So that's cool. And then yeah, we're fully expecting another, like, go again type attack reaction. But our opponent passes on attack reacts here, and so we actually have a very interesting decision. We could just pass back and take 6, because after opponents already passed on further attack reactions, if I don't do anything, they don't get another priority window to like play an attack react that gives a dawnblade go again. So I know that all I'm taking is 6 damage. But then I'm at 5, and that is, I mean, that can be very risky. Because suppose I don't find a Sigil of Permafrost in the next hand, then I still need to survive one or two more turn cycles until I do find a Sigil of Permafrost. And being at 5 in that spot is not going to be... it's not going to be easy to survive if I'm at 5 in that spot. Right. So I go ahead and play out this Arctic Incarceration. I'm not sure why I did that here. Actually, I think that was a mistake. I think I should have just gone ahead and just played this Fate Foreseen first. Oh, and we do see a Sigil of Permafrost on top, so that's very nice. So we know we can likely do the combo next turn if we draw enough blues and an ice card. Yeah, so I'm not sure why I did the Arctic Incarceration then. I probably should have waited until after I see an attack rare from my opponent to play it. And like, you know, if they play it, then I can actually blow them out by giving them 2 Frostbites, and then they can't swing their dawnblade. But anyway, I played it then. Should have waited for it. And then my opponent actually pitches 2 to activate their Tunic, which basically all that does is get rid of those Frostbites, because they paid, you know, to activate ability, Frostbites break, which means they actually prevented themselves 6 damage, because Arctic Incarceration, you know, is 6 damage in the late game, right? 2 Frostbites, each of them deals 3 because of Frost X's. So by pitching those cards to Tunic, my opponent saved themselves 6 life. So pretty good for them. I was really hoping that the Arctic Incarceration chips in some damage. And on our turn, since, you know, we're happy to arsenal the freezing point, since we know there's a Sigil on top, we go ahead and just pitch out 1 blue to Aether Hail. And then, yeah, use the 2 float to Waning Moon. And that's a 6 damage total that we chipped in. That's pretty nice. And we draw up, and we did see the Sigil that we opted, but we don't see enough blues to actually do the combo, so that's actually really frustrating. Like, this is a sort of hand that can actually lose you the game, because, you know, it could be, like, based on what my opponent does, this could very well need to be the turn where I kill them. But with a hand like this, there's no way I do the Sigil Freezing Point combo, so I do need to survive 1 more turn cycle. So let's see if I'm able to do that. Opponent starts with the War is valid, that means Dom is going to be coming for 4. And yeah. One thing, though, that given that this is, you know, like, as long as I can keep the Sigil of Permafrost in hand, it's very likely in the next time I'm going to see at least 2 blues and at least 1 ice card. So I'm totally okay just throwing my equipment at this point, because next turn is almost certainly the last turn of the game. So yep, so I go ahead and block 5 on this 4 attack. Very happy to, yeah, just throw everything I can in front of this. And if you're wondering why I pitched Insidious Chill instead of blocking with it, because, you know, it's the same defense value, right? If I block with it or if I pitch it to block with Ironhide, it's the same. I'm blocking 5. I do this just in case I'm not allowed to hold a Sigil. Just in case I need to play the Sigil of Permafrost, I have the 2 floating to be able to play it. That's, you know, insurance, just in case, you know, I mean, it's a Dory opponent, right? They have a million attack reactions. Lots of things can happen. So just in case that's the state I end up in, I want to be able to play the Sigil of Permafrost. And I know there's at least, was it 1 or 2 more left in the deck? There's 1 or 2 more left in the deck. I play 1 red and 3 yellows. So, yeah. And our opponent plays Singing Steelblade and finds a Stroke of Foresight. They're actually out of Ironsong responses, so that's why they find the +3 that cost them 1. But we did have the Fate Foreseen, so we do manage to block it out and end their turn, so that feels really good. And we opted, and yeah, we didn't need to use our Sigil of Permafrost, so that's pretty awesome. And we opted a Blizzard, and we just kept that just because it's a blue ice card. And given that I want to do them able to hold the Sigil of Permafrost, I'm just gonna keep that there, just guaranteed I have a blue ice card. And then we draw into 1 other blue, which is really all we need. Alright, opponent starts with Iyslander Determination, very strong start. And go ahead and swing the dawnblade. So this dawnblade doesn't have go again yet. Right, so I actually moved to reactions here, which is actually a mistake. Well, kind of. I had to put one more block in front of this. So I actually do ask my opponent whether I can take it back and go ahead and actually put Tunic in front of this. Even like before they resolve this Insidious Chill. Because I realized I miscounted. The scary thing about the Sigil Permafrost combo against Dory is that you need to go into reactions before you can do it. Which means they can respond to like your Insidious Chills and stuff with their own attack reactions. And so for some reason, when I did the math at first, I thought I was playing around Overpower and a +3. But at this point, I was like, wait, no, I actually did not. Because if my opponent has exactly Overpower and some sort of +3 pump attack reaction, I actually die. I die at, well, it's exact lethal. It goes +9 over. I think I forgot to count the Iron Song Determinations +1 when I did the math. So yeah, so there we go. I actually, as my opponent, I can take it back. I activate the Tunic and go ahead so that I can go ahead and put the Tunic in front of this and then use that one float to do the Sigil of Permafrost. So this way I'm safe from a +9 total, as I'm blocking 5 to my opponent's 4. Okay, and then now they're resolving the Insidious Chill. And they use the 2 float, and I go ahead and pop the Amulet of Ice. So my opponent needs to needs to pay another feather 2 or discard. Right, so they pitch a Twinning Blade, and then, yeah, and then, you know, we see whether, I see my opponent has further attack reactions to this. Alright, but my opponent just passes priority, and so, you know, I have to go for this now. I've already used my Insidious Shield and the Amulet of Ice, so I'm kind of, I have to do this, and it's a matter of whether I'm pitching, you know, 2 blues to Storm Striders and Freezing Point, so I have 2 left over to Waning Moon, or do I pitch a red and a blue? I actually decided to pitch the Aether Hail for the Storm Striders, and then pitch the Ice Vein to Freezing Point so I can fuse with the Blizzard. And the reason I do that is because all the way back in turn 1, I saw my opponent play Oasis Respite, and so there is a chance that they've sandbagged an Oasis Respite, and if that's the case, this is not the turn I win. And since I am using my Striders, I don't want to have a red Aether Hail in my arsenal. I'd much rather have this Blizzard. So that's what I'm playing around when I pitch the red there. And the thing is, my opponent doesn't have Oasis Respite, then they die. So I don't actually need the extra Waning Moon activation by pitching 2 blues. I'd rather just be insured in case my opponent does have the Respite, but they don't. So they just block 2, take 6, and then get 6 Frostbites because of the fused Sigil Permafrost, and then they die at the end of their turn to Frost X's. So yeah, there we go. Honestly, very tricky matchup. I was surprised at how tricky this matchup is. I thought that this would be easier than the Guardian matchup, but I actually think it might be more difficult. Because Guardian, at least to some extent, like, gives you time to set up, like, multiple Insidious Shields, but I do not feel that way about Dory. Like, Dory is threatening you every turn, and so... Oh, look at that, my opponent actually found Oasis Respite, and they would have found it in the next hand. But yeah, so Dory's, like, threatening you every turn, whereas Guardians is, like, you know, they have a fair number of off turns where they didn't do much, and then you get to play more Insidious Shields, more Amulets. Yeah, so definitely a very tricky matchup. Not as much as a cakewalk as I thought. Especially given the number of D-reacts we have. I was surprised at how tricky this matchup can be. So yeah, that was the game. Thank you for watching, and I hope you enjoyed it.